all your favorite parts of the 50-yard fight. This is the Inside the Walls podcast with Zach Heilman and Jim Bernier.
Welcoming fans of the 50-yard fight, this is the Inside the Walls podcast. Zach Heilman bringing you in, as always, as we bring you into episode 109 of the show, or as we like to call it, NAL Gameday, Week 10 edition. Wow, we're into the double digits now. As you heard this coming week, or well, last week really, we're already past the halfway point. We are on the back end of the schedule. It is time to hit the main stretch leading into this year's playoffs and NAL championship game that will be coming up later in July and in August. So buckle up. It's time for the more serious affair and the more serious, I think, jockeying for position to kind of begin its early stages now that we are in Week 10. And we got a lot of key matchups coming up this week, some good storylines this week for games. And I'll bring in, of course, my good buddy, pal, and co-host, so we can, fully at length get into these with Jim Bernier. As like I said, I call him the Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport. Oh, I never even called you Ian Rappaport of the league. Well, I'll throw that in as an alternative, whichever you prefer out there. But Jim, good to have you on as always. Of course, can't have a show. I really can't have a show without you. Be frank, just got to be honest.
Well, the question is, who's the one that got the Tom Brady news wrong, or 2 years ago? Was that Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport?
That was both. I mean, it was kind of like I think Rappaport reported it first. If you're wanting to say which one,
then I am Adam Schefter. Then yes.
There you go.
Good call. But yeah, it's great to be here. Week 10's here finally. Week 10's finally here. I don't know what you guys are doing over there, especially listening to our show. Again, thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our followers. Thank you to our fans. And thank you to the players that listen to us each and every week. Remember, we are a platform for you. Again, Week 10 is here. And also, when this show airs on Friday, this Friday at morning, tonight we have a football game. Tonight we have Empire and Predators. So it's here. But also, this weekend, on Sunday, the official launch of the Patreon will be dropping, ladies and gentlemen. The link will be in the description. It will officially launch, doing something unique, interesting. All our content is free. You don't need to go on Patreon to get anything. It's not a requirement. It's just, for a lot of our dedicated listeners who reached out to us. So that's the announcement that I'm toying with. But anyways, it's glad to be here. Week 10, 3 awesome games coming up this weekend. Showdown in Orlando, the Shark Tank, and of course, West Texas. Can Mitch Kidd do it again and get a big dub out west for the West Texas Warbirds as they're trying to catch up with the Fayetteville Mustangs for that 4th spot in the National Arena League. So yes, Week 10's here, and looking forward to it, my friend.
Yeah, likewise. It's going to be a thriller. Like I said, the storyline piece I think is what has a lot of people attracted to Week 10 coming up. One thing or another. Nonetheless, we're going to be diving into that ASAP in just a moment to give you all the details on all the games that you want to discuss this week in the National Arena League. But of course, we got some things to tidy up on. First off, a little more personal stuff, and this isn't trust me, Jim, this ain't deviating away from the rundown. Hey, if you have not, follow us on social media at InWallsPod, by the way, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, if you are new to the show, because we do get regular new subscribers or new listeners, feel free, jump on over to the YouTube page, by the way. If you're an audio listener, hit that subscribe button, click that bell, builds morale for us. If you're on the audio version for the first time, by the way, drop us a review. Let us know what you think. We do like to read and hear from fans. Really do want to make this the best possible, not only NAL show, but arena football show that you get to tune into every week or as much as possible during the year when we get a chance to discuss this stuff, because we do love this sport that much, and we're glad to meet new people that do get to dive in and talk about this as well. Now, diving into more pressing matters of this deal, let's get into the media poll. shall we? Every game day, if you're, for example, if you're new, remember, we do media polls and coaches polls. So kicking things off, media poll, who votes? Us and a lot of other guys around the league that do cover the NAL, which is growing, which I'm glad to see. We are getting more people covering the NAL and all its things. You might be looking on the video version right now and noticing that the poll does have a few changes from last week. I know we did penalize the Gunslingers a little bit in week 9, but got to drop the Cobras. You lose to the Mustangs, you do get knocked down a peg for that, and the voters definitely came out and recognized that, moving San Antonio back up to that 2 spot. Jacksonville still holding strong at the number 1. They actually gained a first place vote this week. That one was coming from the Cobras from last week's vote. They now have 8. The Gunslingers are second. They have 2 first place votes. Rest of the rundown: Cobras at 3, Mustangs at 4, Warbirds at 5, Preds at 6, Empire sitting all the way down there at 7. And that's all she wrote. Jim, I mean, real quick analysis on this for the media poll, but I mean, I think you and I, many others that put in the votes here. Again, Jacksonville still showing they're strong as ever. That I don't think is a question, but I think the bigger one was that seeing the Cobras take that slip, Mustangs came in, came out, had that signature win as we discussed, and Carolina got penalized for it, rightfully so.
They really didn't get talking about penalization. It's not really getting penalty. Yes, they got hurt.
Well, I mean, in the standings, you lose a spot. That's what I'm saying.
They lose a spot. They lost a couple of votes, but they're still in the mix. As you can tell in the media poll right now, Jacksonville and the Gunslingers, Jacksonville and San Antonio, are clear 1 and 2 in the league. Then you see the Cobras and Mustangs as that 3 and 4. Then you get the Warbirds basically are by themselves at 5. And Predators are by themselves, and then the Empire are 7th place. But you could tell Jacksonville took care of business last week in West Texas. They got the win. Gunslingers bounced back. Of course, we had a guy that voted Sharks 1 week, and he now voted back with the Gunslingers. So you got 2 votes for San Antonio. So you're seeing in the media poll right now that the top 2 teams are rising to the that term, the cream rises to the top. Sharks and the Gunslingers are that right now. The Cobras got a little, one of the most inconsistent games we've seen them play since last year, and Fayetteville got them. Fayetteville is creeping up in the rankings. They're gaining more votes again. I think they gained 6 votes this time around. West Texas only had 22 votes last week. Now they're at 31, so they're gaining votes as well. So it seems like the top echelons of the media poll standings they're slowly pulling away from the lower tier teams, where the lower tier teams are losing votes as the season gets further ahead. But that can change, especially this weekend, where you have the 7 taking on the 6 this week, 5 taking on the 3, and the 4 taking on the 1 in the media poll rankings. The coaches poll rankings, I think, drop sometime tomorrow. There was a delay in that. I think they drop sometime tomorrow, maybe at the time of this show. But this is the week 10 media polls with 10 guys who cover the league, spanning from podcasts, news, color analysts, and actual people who work for newspapers around the National Arena League, doing these media polls for the non-biased poll, as we try to get, because a lot of us do kind of lean towards. It's like a great example, the AP poll in college football. There's some teams that get ranked higher, so high they don't deserve the ranking, but it's because their name and their brand sells. That gets the edge over a team that's well deserving. So I like a poll where you got coaches and media, they come together and make their own poll. But that will never work. Never does in college football, and most likely won't happen here. But then again, this is something that just what we believe as people in the media think the league stands as of today. And the coaches poll will be out on Friday before the game kicks off down in Orlando.
Yep. You'll see that soon enough. Again, it's sometimes some things can't fully get arranged. And keep in mind, it's a lot of it, they try and get all the coaches into the poll, as we all know. Mm-hmm. Albany, Mo Leggett just getting recently more adjusted. Poll is probably not his first priority right now, but
correct.
They will still get it out. Trust me, just, sometimes we get it, sometimes we don't, but they always do post a new one, as you've seen. So you'll get a week 10 one before we kick off coming up. Well, today, as you're listening to this show, most likely, or tonight, as you're listening to the show, going in to that first matchup. But yeah, kind of summarizes things. Not too much changes. Again, that great win from Fayetteville kind of moves a few pieces around, but still is going to be a fun rest of the season. I think the Mustangs make it for voters a little more challenging if they keep stacking wins, although we'll talk about the challenges ahead for them this week, as you may know, with the top-ranked team that they're going to have to go visit in, and from what I've tracked, is a very crowded ViStar Memorial Coliseum that's going to be hosting this weekend. I mean, the tickets are really moving. It looks
two
like
themes this week in Jacksonville. It's Bring a Buddy game and Hawaiian night. Usually when Jacksonville does Bring a Buddy game, the crowd is roughly, from the last couple of years I remember, is touching near 8,500 people. That's one of our big games. It's been a tradition here in Jacksonville for that event for the last couple of years. So expect a big crowd, and especially when here in Jacksonville, a lot of TV coverage, a lot of radio coverage, a lot of commercials, a lot of vehicles to see around town with Jacksonville stuff going on. So when the Sharks are winning, people in Jacksonville notice, and that building's going to get packed. So the Shark Tank now is good. Just wait until this team is competing for home field advantage in the playoffs. Those last couple of home games are going to be very, very intense. And if they do get in the playoffs, nothing beats a playoff home game in the Shark Tank. And for the people in Jacksonville, that's their goal. It's for every team, especially in San Antonio. Their goal is to get a playoff game. But yeah, Jacksonville attendance is looking good. I looked at Orlando's attendance. They're looking pretty good.
Yes, they
West
are.
Texas is, from the people I've talked to, they're expected to have their biggest crowd of the year. Again,
keyword again, by the way.
Again, last week was
2103
was the total for last week's game. It was the biggest crowd of the year, and they expect more this week. So there's buzz in the air. Again, we're in the playoff push starting here week 10 in the National Arena League. So it's early, but speaking of week 10, let me put this back up before we start talking about our first game. This is where it stands after last week's completion of the NAL playoffs. Fayetteville will travel to San Antonio. The Carolina Cobras will travel to Jacksonville in that 3-2 matchup. And if seeds fall as they may, the San Antonio Gunslingers, as of this moment, will be having home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And if you have a history of the National Arena, only one team in the NAL has ever lost as a 1 seed in the playoffs. That was the Massachusetts Pirates in 2018. Every other 1 seed has prevailed and made it to the championship and won the championship. So it's pivotal to get the 1 seed, especially here in the National Arena League.
Certainly helps a lot, that home field advantage no matter what, but also usually signifies a lot of what you might expect for the end of the year result to be come August, is what we're saying. Let's dive in, by the way. It's week 10 time. It's time to talk about some football. And let's get into one of the matchups on Saturday. We're going to go a little reverse. It is Friday that has the first game, but we said that's the game of the week, so we can't really dive in yet to your evening game. So as you can see, let's talk about the Carolina Cobras jumping out, traveling on the road, maybe trying to kind of not remember what happened the week prior. They're going to go out to the Ector Memorial Coliseum. They're going to be playing in the Top Gunner's house, the Hangar. And as you said, it's tracking towards even a record crowd for them this week, which, I mean, hey, look, that's great. I think you said it best in one of our recent shows, where it's feeling like San Antonio of last year, where things are changing in the right direction for the better in the NAL, which is a great storyline, by the way. They got a competitive squad. Carolina's going to have to come in and play a pretty solid football game, but that doesn't mean that they're going to walk away with a win, even playing solid. We saw last week, it was a 1-possession game for at least the back end of that fourth quarter at 2 different instances with the Warbirds, and you're going to have that crowd on your side. Fun times ahead. I mean, I don't really always believe in silver linings, but if you're Coach Smith, if you're Mitch Kidd, as we are still going to get him on the show at some point, both of them again on the show at some point, I guess you can take some silver lining into this week and be like, hey, look, we hung in with the big dog, one of the guys that a lot of people think are the top guys in this league, who's to say we can't get a little revenge on a team that we lost by a kick earlier in the year? In our own home palace, mind you. Our own home hangar, mind you. That's got to be what they're feeling right now.
Yeah, for West Texas, they went on the road in Carolina and took them to the wire earlier in the year. And that was a sign of something. And you mentioned about West Texas is like it's like deja vu from San Antonio from last year. The difference between this West Texas team now and San Antonio last year is West Texas is currently in the mix for the postseason right now, where the standings are. They win if they beat Carolina this week, and a little help from them from a team up above them, probably Jacksonville knocking off Fayetteville. They will gain a game on Fayetteville and a game on Carolina. So they put them right in the thick of that 4, even the 3 in the postseason push. And depending on what happens down in Orlando, you could see Orlando start putting into that picture. That's how crucial this game is for the ramifications outside of just this game itself.
Yeah.
Now, when you preview this game, you want to look at key, aspects of the game, how the teams were previous week. Carolina struggled; they couldn't sustain drives. A lot of short. Their game plan with Coach Fuller's offense is he's going to nickel and dime you, and he's going to keep doing that until you bring the safeties up, and he's going to beat you deep. Unfortunately, Fayetteville did a great job of let Fuller do the nickel and dime, but we're not going to pull our guys up for you to go deep. They did that very well against Malik Henry. Also, that offense of Carolina was just not drives were dying. They were showing no sign of consistency, and Malik Henry looked like he was the Malik Henry from last season in Jacksonville. Like didn't know what he was doing. Not didn't know what he was doing. Certain routes weren't open, and he was trying to force plays down the field. See, now you look at West Texas, even though Jacksonville scored 58 points last week, you can say that West Texas kind of held their own against a very potent offense in Jacksonville.
Oh, it definitely did. I think it's without question.
Carolina has a good offense, but I don't think they're as good as Jacksonville yet, and how the two teams have played overall this season. You're heading out west. That's a long road trip from Greensboro, North Carolina, down to Odessa. That's a long flight. So there's little aspects that we will, put into this as well. But one of the things I want to see is what we didn't see last week is Naquan Murray or Nooney Murray from the Carolina Cobras didn't play last week. I think he's active this week, and that's be a big addition for Malik Henry. Mm-hmm. Also, guys last week that we didn't hear their names a lot last week were Zach Brown, Adam Smith, Lance Evans. You didn't hear those names last week because it was just how good Fayetteville was playing. Now you're heading out west to West Texas. And when you got guys, you look at the West Texas side of the ball, who are their go-to guys on defense? Well, you got a Trayvon Shorts, who's probably one of the better jacks in the league and probably one of the better running backs in the league. He can carry a game. You have guys like C. Lewis who can, solidify that front line. And you have Wilson, an Ironman player who is a dynamic receiver, and he's a big man, so he can go up against some of these tall receivers and grab the ball. This game right here, and especially how West Texas has been playing over the last couple of weeks, what Carolina better not go in there thinking this is going to be an easy win. This is going to be a 4-quarter battle. And usually we go, hey, TC Stevens, the main weapon. West Texas has Weber, and he hit 3 deuces last week. It was one deuce away from tying the NAL record for 4. So they have weapons. But also, the quarterbacks. Mitch Kidd, who is very impressive, who came in and got a big win on the road in Orlando, did very well against Jacksonville. A couple of turnovers, but fumbles, and those are all usually 90% luck sometimes. But West Texas has a solid core. One thing I like about West Texas in this game is they're home. They took Jacksonville to the wire, who's a great offense. Mm-hmm. Now another team from the East Coast is traveling all the way up to Odessa. You don't have to travel. You have an extra week to prepare for Carolina, extra week with your guys, so you have more chemistry with your guys. And this week, you're going up against a team in Carolina who's, I think, trying to find themselves in offense again. But Carolina's that type of team. We've seen in the past where they're all firing all cylinders. They're a very explosive offense who could score a lot of points. Their defense is the same way. But one thing that was mentioned on another show that I watched a film about Carolina. This is one thing that worries me about Carolina. They have great talent, great athletes, but they miss a lot of open field tackles. And Fayetteville ate them alive for those missed tackles last week. If they can shore that up, contain Childress, get him to the ground, get Wilson to the ground, and make West Texas basically go 50 yards down the field for every score, not have a blown coverage or easy score, Carolina could set the tone of the game. My keys to this game and my goal for this key to this game for both teams is who can make the game go their game plan, meaning who controls, who dictates the game plan. Is it Carolina's speed where they're going to just, nickel and dime you down the field and score and get you to move up, hit you deep? Or is it West Texas style we're going to run the football, we're going to eat some clock, and we're going to score, and we're going to play solid defense? Who dictates their will on this game is, in my opinion, the team that's going to pull out the victory here out west in Odessa.
Well, I think if you're Carolina, you're coming out of the bat, whether you get the coin toss on your side or not, and essentially just rectifying what was, I think, the main catalyst as to why they couldn't keep up with Fayetteville and really why they got so far behind the eight ball to where it just didn't matter later on. Simple thing is you can't, if I'm James Ford at the end of that contest, you're going to your guys going, guys, we just can't get down 32-9. We can't get down, upwards of three possessions.
Yeah.
That just won't win any football games. And, you could maybe say that about Fayetteville, I would say 3 weeks ago. But, even then, that was a similar squad they played earlier in the year. Only got away with it for a 2-point deuce conversion, that great kick from TC Stevens. They're going to have to come play. Now, I'll admit, like you said, though, Naquan Murray, that'll be great to get back. And honestly, if they can get the ball first and kind of just play their brand of ball right away, put the pressure on the other side right out of the gate, that might help a ton. And again, they still, defensive pieces, they're no slouch still. I mean, they still got good defensive guys in the secondary that can cover and keep things at bay and take advantage. I do want to see, can they get similar pressure on Mitch Kidd that maybe the Sharks did in the fourth quarter to kind of close the deal? I don't know if that's going to happen, but I think that's something you're going to be watching in this game, especially early on, is are they rattling his cage? Because Mitch is great at manipulating the pocket so far. He's been doing an excellent job kind of buying himself time, getting guys open from his feet. I think he's getting a better Rappaport. Not only, he's had Jalen Childers, but Richie Anderson's getting more involved in that offense. Don Raspberry getting a little more time and all. And they've been getting a little bit more week by week with each other. That helps. Defensive side of the ball, like I said, you get out to an early score, you can help put pressure on that West Texas defense. Now, if you get a good stop on West Texas' side, like if West Texas gets everything stalled, sky's the limit to me. You're feeling great because then you're going, all right, we held down the fort decently. We kind of slowed things down against Jacksonville. We're keeping up this train rolling into this contest. We gotta be feeling pretty good. And again, if you're talking a record crowd in that arena, which the hangar can get loud. It is a shallow arena, so you got a lot more reverberation. It doesn't take as many people to get as much noise in there to make it loud. A lot more reflecting sounds off the walls, off the ceiling. It does become a distraction. If you're getting more than 2,000 people in there, good luck.
Well, I have a source who was at the game last week, player, by the way, saying that this is his second time out there because he was with the team in the week one. He goes, it's a day and night comparison to them now than it was in week one, based on the fans. It gets loud. Apparently, they have a metal roof that's very unique compared to arenas. Because arenas, the roofs are different, texture or whatever.
Well, that's why they partially call it the hangar. Yeah,
because it's like a metal roof hangar. And he goes, the volume reverberates in that building and when it gets loud. So that's from a current player for the Sharks, saying hats off to the fans of Odessa for showing out. So yeah, For that size of arena, I looked at this Mac. I think I looked on the Google or something like that. It says capacity is about like 5,500 for max capacity, or 5,800, something like that. So 22,000, 2,500. That's half the building. I'll make that building very loud, and yeah, trust me.
You get the party zone going. You can get some more people in there. You can even
True,
stack it more than just the seating attendance. So,
true.
that's the thing. But I think that keep that in consideration. Although honestly, at this point, we've gotten most of. It feels like a lot of the arenas in the NAL you'll get loud. I just think this one, with you're seeing the crowds grow. But I think I'll finish off my thing with this game by saying and repeating what I said again. I think Carolina just wants to get to a fast start. I think that's just what they want to do. It's to get in a rhythm, get the mojo back. Like you're talking with Naquan Murray. If he's in there, it's another piece to distract from Adam Smith and company, causing damage on the other side, or Lance Evans on the other side. You basically open that. Miles Kelly, he gets another game. And this is something that was key last week. He came back from a short-term IR stint, or really a long-term IR stint because it was beginning of the year. But he comes back from a long-term IR. It's really only his first game back. Now he gets another week under his belt to kind of get the rust off. He should be getting more reps and more comfortably getting reps with his guys again. So if you get a fast start, you can get these guys all in sync again. I mean, Carolina, to me, they have all the pieces like we've expected. It's just that I think a lot of people are saying, how do you respond going on the road and kind of coming off your ugliest loss of this year out of the two?
Sure. Oh, before we go to our next game, name a player that needs to have a breakout game for Carolina for them to pull off a victory here in Odessa.
Carolina, I mean, I think you nailed it right in the head. You know what? No. Naquan, I could say. I think it's going to be Malik Henry. Okay. I do fully believe Malik Henry. I want to see if he has a bit more crisper performance than he did previous week. And I just believe, to me, that Tate Smith is a good defensive arena coach, which is weird to say, given that this is arena football we're talking about. But they've put up great performances, and I think they're going to key in on that run. They know Carolina. They do a lot more functionally with the run than other teams in the NAL do. And I think they're going to basically say, all right, well, we'll make damn sure that when we see a run coming, we're going to stuff it. You better bring your A game in the passing game. And Malik can, but, sometimes I think you do see the Cobras lean a little bit more on the run game to help supplant maybe some inefficiencies. And I'm hoping that with Henry, he gets to step up with having Kelly back a second week, healthier, and Murray being fully back to where you can kind of see him go off a little bit. I think that's going to be crucial, is how well does he perform under pressure. Do you see the same? And then give me your West Texas key player while we're at it.
I think for West Texas, Trayvon Shorts needs to go off, meaning sack, not really sack, maybe a deflection pass, interception, but at least 2 rushing touchdowns. Let's say about 35 to 40 yards rushing on the ground could be something where that's in our game, ladies and gentlemen, that's going off.
That'd be a lot of yards.
Yeah,
for a night.
I think we've seen Shorts play up in Albany where he's a shutdown jack linebacker. He can just roam the zone. If he can find a way to get a crucial turnover to get Mitch Kidd an extra possession in the game, and then he either runs it in or he gets a big run. I think he'd be a key factor for this game because I think him and Zach Brown, or whoever, in my opinion, I think for West Texas to be Trayvon Shorts, same as with Carolina's with Zach Brown. You're going to see a lot of running in this game, which you usually don't see a lot in the arena game. Well, you got 2 teams that love to run football going after each other this Saturday night, 8:30 Eastern on YouTube.
Yeah, not too bad. I agree with you on the Shorts one. I think that'll be vital. And if anything, it's a plan. It lets Kid kind of chill out. They get to kind of mix this up. And Shorts is funny. Shorts we thought was going to be more of the main rushing force, but they've mixed it up. They do have 2. They have 2 runners as well. Ingram is another one. So, they do have guys that they can pick and choose. But I do think that Shorts is the more. I think he's a little like Ingram's more of the bruiser. Shorts is more of the finesse. He can deliver a punch, but he's great at getting guys off balance and kind of doing the cut. So I do hope to see him get more involved. But good choice. Defensively specifically, I think that he'll absolutely be one that sticks out and will be vital, I think, if you're like talking with us, like Malik Henry being that guy. But I digress. Before we dive into game number 2, let's talk a little bit about you get a little bit of video.
Yeah, I got an announcement to make.
Yeah, you do. Let's show something off, shall we?
Uno is back. Yes, Devin Wilson will be on NAL Rebound. Very rare we do player interviews on Rebound, but Devin Wilson has been gone for 10 weeks from the NAL, so will be back. No, it's not a hint on who he's signing with. That's just all the photos we can find, or I can find. It's all in Sharks gear. So I think the announcement will happen sometime next week where he signs, so his suspension does end this weekend, especially when the final whistle, when the clocks go 00 in Odessa, he is off suspension from the National Arena League, and he is a free agent for a time, but he wants to come on the show. We want him on the show because he's a big supporter. He's influenced this show a lot with his help for me to get connections in the league. So Uno's been a cool cat, and he's at every Sharks home game. So the guy is a very loyal. He's loyal to the city of Jacksonville with fans. And again, he was one of our first guests on the show 2 years ago. So why not bring back Uno for his return to the National Arena League? Most likely on Tuesday, he'll tell you who he's signing with and who he's going to play for. And we'll just discuss about what's the last half a season's been for him, getting ready, and talk about other stuff, probably what happened in last year, see how he grew. So we're looking forward to it. So that's a special interview. Uno returns Tuesday on NAL Rebound. Live here on YouTube, possibly at a new time. We have a poll going on out there, so go vote. We've had people ask about releasing time later, so we have a vote. It's on our Facebook page. Go vote. So as of right now, it'll be 10 a.m. East Coast time on Tuesday.
Yeah, keep it posted. But yeah, that should be a fun one. Last interview we did with him was very entertaining. So we're excited to get him back on, and he'll talk about where he's coming back to. So if you want to know, hey, where's Devin Wilson playing this year? For that stretch run again, because we're past the halfway point, especially after this week. Any team could gladly use the services of an all NAL talent that also plays good two ways. We saw last year too. That's something that gets overshadowed. He does do good Iron Man work on both sides of the ball. So you're getting not only a good receiver, but most likely a good Iron Man player, one of the better ones in this league, jumping in on your roster. So stick around. We'll be talking about that come beginning next week. However, we got a game to get through. Sharks are hosting a game back in the tank. They're taking on the Mustangs, who are coming off, as we saw with their social media, they're coming off, they're feeling pretty good. Last week, got that big signature win against their in-state, what we're going to call officially a rivalry, because as Jason Gibson says for the Sharks, it's not really a rivalry until you both get a win off each other, and certainly enough, the Cobras did get one, and Fayetteville return the favor right back. So we'll call it the Carolina Rumble a rivalry officially now. They get to pump their chest up, but they have to go on the road just down the way to ViStar Memorial Coliseum. And as you pointed out, Jim, they're going on a night where the Sharks are doing a really good promo for the crowd, to grow. Bring a buddy, because it's just going to be loud for Rakeem Cato and company to kind of focus in. But I do say, for the Mustangs, if you are going to take on the Sharks after getting your licks in and having to take them as you did last time at Crown Coliseum, good time to bring a confidence booster in getting that win off Carolina, because Jacksonville playing their best ball right now for the most part. I really can't say there's many flaws in their game at this time.
No, number one scoring offense in the National Arena League, number one in total offense in the National Arena League, number one in points off of turnovers, number 4 defensively over in the National Arena League, number 2 in the league in defensive scoring. and the list goes on. That's the reason why they're 5-2, and they're number one in the media poll, and most likely I think they're going to be number one again in the coaches poll for this week. But yes, it is a tall task for the Fayetteville Mustangs. But what Fayetteville did last week is they shut me and you up. We
They
ate
did.
crow. They told us to acknowledge them. But I made a statement last on Tuesday's show that you beat Carolina and Carolina. Now you're coming to a game where if you beat this team, it's a bigger statement. It's a tall task going into the Shark Tank, especially against an offense that's firing all cylinders. And you look at previous matchup between these two teams in Fayetteville. It was a close game in the first half. A turnover in the first possession by Fayetteville in the second half was the termination of the game, where then Jacksonville went on to win by three scores. But the difference between Crown Coliseum and the Shark Tank is it's a hostile crowd in Jacksonville. They know the game in Jacksonville. They'll be loud at the right times. They'll be quiet at the right times. And again, I've talked to many players. When you go into Shark Tank, it brings the better personality in the player. Kendrick Gaines has said this before. Trey Long has said this before, and other interviews about playing in big stadiums. A lot of players rather play on the road than home because they rather shut up over opposing crowd than play in front of their own fans. So it's going to be a nice atmosphere. This is going to be an atmosphere where we can either see a team make another big step in their development and growth as an organization, or we'll see the oh hum, Jacksonville just won again. Oh hum, they just scored 60 points again. That's the type of game that we can see in this game. Excuse me. That's the type of game that I expect to see in this game, where you have two franchises going upper trajectory right now, as we are nearing. Well, not really nearing. We're still 8 weeks away from the postseason, but this is a time for players like Rakeem Cato, Trey Long, to make that next step. Tevin Homer to make that next step. James Summers to make that next step against a very potent offense. And, of course, a defense who, as well, leads the National Arena League in sacks as of this moment, who is also second in the National Arena League with sack pressures, which I don't understand that's why they're second, even though they have the most sacks. But
maybe efficiency's not the same, I guess.
I'm just reading. San Antonio's number one in sack pressures, but we're number one in sack totals. Or the Sharks are, excuse me, not we're. See, that's my fan and pop.
Well, see, now this is how I read this, though, because you're bringing up a point. That means that they're getting home more. Pressures are if you're coming close, but you're no cigar, or you're influencing the play, which credit San Antonio definitely. They're no slouch. We know that for a fact. Justin Alexander, Calvin Fantz, they're going to get back there. But, how, I mean, we're talking Shagai Holiness here. I mean, dude's got 10 sacks right now. He's double digits. That's impressive. We're not even halfway through. We're halfway through the year right now.
Shakai has 10 sacks. The stats are a little off on the NAL site. I got confirmation. David Gilbert has 4. Renfro has 4. Shakai has 10. Because Sharks have a total of 22 sacks this year. I think the website only says 18, so there's 3 sacks missing. So Jacksonville gets to the quarterback and gets sacks. For Fayetteville's side of the thing, you look at their stats, they're 5th in the National Arena League of giving up sacks. And then the only teams that are below them are Orlando and Albany that give up sacks. They're the 5th team. So you got the number 1 taking on the number 5. So that's going to be a key contributor. But when we see in the previous game between these two teams, Jacksonville controlled the line of scrimmage. They dominated from the beginning of the game. Even though the score in the first half was close, when you're seeing the pure dominance that was happening in the line of scrimmage in week 3. Week 3 of the season. It was completely just obliteration from that point on in the game. And then you saw in the second half, Jacksonville pull away. But one thing Fayetteville has done, especially in Carolina, especially what they did against Albany, their line of scrimmage game has improved tremendously. They're giving Cato time. Cato's looking down the field and getting open receivers. He's making right decisions. Their offense is potent. Their offense is explosive when it's clicking. That's one thing I love about Fayetteville's offense. They got the weapons in Fayetteville that they can put up 70. We've seen them do it this year. or 68, but still, that's close. That's 70. They did it week 1 against Orlando. They can do that. They can have that explosive offense. So this is not going to be a walk in the park for Jacksonville. Jacksonville knows they have a tough team coming in with an explosive offense, and they have to have it trying to contain Cato. If they contain Cato like they did the first time around, we probably could see the same affair. But I don't see that. I see a more experienced team in Fayetteville that's been together longer, who now understands each other, going down the Shark team, trying to go and prove a point. Again, they're only a game back of the Sharks in the standings. A win will get them closer based on tiebreakers. I don't know how that will work. I haven't looked into it, but it's going to be a very interesting game for that point. Fayetteville's still in the mix for the 2. Jacksonville's still in the mix for a 4 and a 1, so it's still early in the game. But one of the things I want to look in this game is be right in the beginning of the game. It's like every time I watch football games, a lot of people want to look at the receivers and quarterbacks. Like it's all about the stars and the big plays. I want to see if the Hogs on the line scrimmage, who's winning that battle. Whoever wins that battle or in the early stages of the game, you can see who will eventually win the game as well. Wish there was a stat that can show that, but no one follows stats like that this day and age. But a key for me for Jacksonville in this game is containing Cato. Get him on the ground. Don't make him dance back there. Don't make him scramble out there, because when he does, Kendrick Ings finds a way to get open. Trey Long finds a good way open. And Lance Summers, who had a nice little breakout game last week against Carolina, can be that third option that can end up being his torch for Fayetteville to hurt Jacksonville. So for Jacksonville, the key to the game here is just trying to contain Cato, and also at the same time, keep the offense doing what you're doing. Every possession, score points, get Marco to hit the deuces. You're in VyStar Arena, so you don't have to deal with American flags blocking the field goal post like you did in Odessa. So there won't be no dust. Well, there is a banner, but I don't think he'll touch it, though. The scoreboard's been moved. But overall, out of the 3 games this weekend, everyone says, why is Fayetteville and Jacksonville not a game of the week? It should be. Well, it should be because it's the 2 topper teams head-to-head. I'm looking forward to this game. I'll be there live with a couple of friends enjoying the game. So if you're there live, come find me, Section 113. We'll chit-chat and enjoy the game. I'm looking forward to watching. I'm looking forward to meet Kendrick Ings. I messaged him a couple times, like, I can't wait till you come down to Jax. Can't wait to meet you. So there's guys on the team I love to shake hands with. So overall, this game, one thing I love about this game is that this could be the game where Fayetteville wins and they skyrocket to the top of the tier of this league, or it could be a game where Jacksonville solidifies himself like, we are the top dogs in this league. This is just the beginning. This is one of the games I'm really looking forward to. Can Cato make that next step from being just a good quarterback in the league to be an elite quarterback in the league? If he does that, sky's the limit for Fayetteville.
It is certainly a massive chance right now to keep on adding on to what has been, a really great season for the Mustangs. I mean, look, we saw against Carolina, something that they were able to do is that, in a game with a higher caliber opponent, they played clean, they played effective football. There was that slip up we talked about beginning of the second half. They've done it 2 weeks in a row. Now you can't keep that trend going. You need to get out of the halftime, and everyone's got to be on the same page right out of the gate. You can't just allow a possession. You can't just allow a possession swing like that off of a turnover. And that's something that if you're the Mustangs, you played arguably one of your cleanest games against Carolina last week. Somehow you have to play it cleaner. That's just how it goes with top teams in the NAL like this, whether it is, this year's Sharks, whether it's been the 2 previous years' Empire, or the Carolina Cobras of this year or last, the Gunslingers coming in. You got to play clean football. That makes or breaks you so much in the NAL and in arena football. And I think for the Mustangs, whether it's Rakeem Cato getting an exchange with his center down correctly, whether it is, getting a clean pocket to deliver a pass, making sure that, you're executing no mental gaffes in the secondary, which is going to be hard because there are so many weapons that the Sharks can throw at you that it will be tough, even with this veteran core that they have, which their defense played arguably their best game last week, which is a great sign if you're coming in. That is a great confidence booster coming in. You're going to need it because it is the best offense in the National Arena League. And you could make an argument for the best defense. I mean, it's playing overall the best ball right now is Jacksonville. And they have 2 losses, but you can even look back at those losses and say, well, I had 1 point affair against what is also one of the top teams in the league. And the other one was a just missed come from behind loss to the Preds with our at that time star rookie quarterback going down with a basically a long IR injury, although it's, I would say, probably season ending at this point, given, the transaction to get Castronova, but I digress. You have to play perfect, if you want to pull this off. It's not impossible. Any game's possible, any night's possible, but you got to play perfect and you got to protect your quarterback. And that's going to be the biggest challenge. I think, if you want to talk key players to the game, I know you can say Rakeem Cato. I actually believe I think it's going to come down to anyone that's secondary. So I'm going to lay it on Tevin Homer and Trey Long. I'll do a combo there. They're DBs. They're going to be put in scenarios where they're going to have to play their best game. They're going to have to make sure their guys are on the same page. If you can slow down at least one element of Sam Castronova's game where he can't find guys, sure, he can run on you, but he can't run every play on you, is the deal. So I think on that side, before I toss it to you, I think that at least the DBs, I'll go with those 2, because I think both of them have to play top notch, their best on that side of the ball. Trey Long will get his numbers as a receiver, but I think on the opposite side, if you want to have any chance against Jacksonville, you need to get stops or find a way to get a turnover in some way. And it'll come down to those guys, especially in the secondary.
Well, I'm going to do a double feature as well, as like you just did. Shakai Holiness and Jeremiah Price, the 2
Good
DNs
choices
for Jacksonville. If they're having good games, a couple of sacks, that means Cato's being contained. I think those would be the 2 key individuals in the game to see if Jacksonville is having their way, with meaning getting stops, getting scores. It comes down to if they can get pressure on Cato. So Jeremiah Price and Shakai Holiness are my 2 guys to see key players that have breakout games to lead their team to victory or lead the Sharks to victory on Saturday night.
Yeah. Going to be a fun contest. Definitely, if you're in the area, I mean, it's in terms of the matchups on the schedule this week, it is the heaviest. It's the 2 heavyweight fighter matchup. It's the title card one, at least, or the I don't know boxing. Main event, the marquee. I'm not great with boxing terms beyond in the ring, but that's what it is. It's the main event, the marquee event, the top card, not the undercard meeting, so you'll want to tune in if you want like the best competitive, I think. However, that's not to say it was hard for us to pick game of the week, because the one that we are going to talk about, the storylines, it's all over the place. The storylines in this game, it's the talk of the town for the two meeting up. And you know who it is. I think you've seen the beef online, but we'll tease it in here with, as Jim has been putting lately, some excellent trailer footage to get you going. Let's roll that glorious lead in to this matchup this evening.
It's time we settle the score. Yeah, it's time we settle the score. Come on, are you ready? Let's go. I got this hunger inside of me, a vicious vendetta that won't ever let up. It's bringing the fire up out of me. I come alive for the rivalry. I hear the talk, but that ain't enough. I'm about to pull the rug on your bluff. I'm fresh out of mercy, you out of luck. Yeah, I stand on my rep and I back it up. Turn up the drama, let's set it off. I'm like a beast on the battleground. This kingdom ain't built for the both of us. I'm on my way to come knock you down. Let's go! This time is personal. It's time to reap what you sow. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. This is the end of the road. We got some unfinished business. Your time is ending. Right here, right now. I came to finish you. This
And thus the journey begins as we have Friday night's matchup. One of only two Friday night games this year, and it's going to be our game of the week 10, Albany Empire. They're traveling to Amway, the jungle, to take on the Orlando Predators. I tried my best PA announcer voice from the Preds because that guy is a different level of PA announcer. That whole crew is a different level of broadcast crew in arena or not. But look, the storylines. Yeah. Right you are, Jimmy boy.
Sorry, I had to take it. That's just a classic one.
Well, the storylines in this one we could not pass up. Look, you've got multiple all NAL guys from the Albany Empire. We have talked at length about the mass release from earlier this year that are on this roster. You've got Jonathan Bane, who was with the Preds, or now is with the Preds, but who was with the Empire just 3 weeks prior, and here you are. That whole roster, coupled with all its talent, it's trying to find its feet. Meanwhile, the Empire, as we talked, they have been a story in their own right, on, off the field, you name it. It has been all over the place. And the extra little tidbit, the final driving home point that we're like, okay, we can't pass this up for game of the week. We got players talking online. We don't always talk about this, but Kerry Starks and Fabian Guerra, they want a challenge. They have put it out there that they want this game, it sounds like. And I think the Preds have a chip on their shoulder, knowing that you have a lot of guys came from a roster that have come together, former head coach as well, coming over as offensive coordinator. They've had 2 losses so far with this group being put together like this. Now, credit, Bane has only stepped in as of last week, but I think they got a chip on their shoulder. And now you got a team that has guys that have played their former squad that are now talking like players do sometimes. It's, to me, as much as I like good competition, that is also must-watch storyline football right there, which is why I have to, no matter what's happening tomorrow, I will be sitting on my couch watching this game on YouTube. Because it is the game it's one of the 2 games I'm like, no matter what, I can't miss this. Yeah. for that specific reason. I have to see how this plays out. It's because of this.
It has been when we announced this as game of the week on Sunday, we've had a lot of messages on our Discord page and Twitter's like, why are you having this last place game as game of the week? Why are you not going to Fayetteville, Jacksonville, or even West Texas? It's because this is basically, we're week 10. This could be a de facto elimination game of the team who loses. The team who loses is going to go 1-6. They could possibly be 3.5 to 4.5 games out of the 4 seed, depending on anything that's happened above them. And the team that wins is staying up the pace with the teams above them. So this is a reason why. And also, it's the storylines that have been coming out this week about, the players on social media getting feisty, which usually that's when the players start going back and forth with each other. It's a rivalry. Even though Albany and Orlando are not a rival in the realm of the arena game, it's starting to become one. Of course, you do have current players for Orlando that won championships, multiple championships up in Albany that are now in the black and red. You have players there that have a massive chip on their shoulders, where when toe hits leather at 7 o'clock Eastern in Amway, there's going to be a playoff atmosphere in Amway for a Week 10 game. Albany is coming down there with a bunch of new signings as Maurice Leggett is getting his guys in. Like we talked on the show with Jonathan Bane earlier, is the overall preparation, team chemistry. That will be an issue, in my opinion, for Albany. Do they have enough of it? Yes, Fabian Guerra. Yes, Roland Rivers. Yes, Starks. They have some chemistry right now, but you have a lot more new additions in. In Orlando, not a lot of transitions going on right now. They still got C.J. Williams. They still have Lonnie Outlaw, who is starting to be like Lonnie Outlaw, what we know from 2001 or 21. Excuse me, not 2001. It's a long time ago. 2021. Darius Prince is Darius Prince. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder, and of course, when you look on the defensive side of the ball, you have Nick Hague and you have Brandon Cisse. Those guys, I know, you piss them off, they're going to wreak havoc, and they
Yeah.
have a chip on his shoulder. I look at this game, and Albany is trying to find themselves, trying to rebuild themselves, trying to, get back to their ways. The guys in Orlando, they helped build the Albany way. They were the founders of the Albany way. Now they're in Orlando. You think they don't have some, something to settle on this Friday night? So this game is going to be intense. This is going to be a playoff game. These two teams are not rivals. Tomorrow night they're going to be rivals, and possibly we have. Well, we know we have two MVPs playing this game tomorrow night because Jonathan Bane won MVP years ago in the NAL. The GOAT is the defending MVP. Brandon Cisse has multiple defensive awards. Nick Hague has had multiple defensive players awards. Brandon Fuentes, Josh Jenkins, Lonnie Outlaw's had some NAL second team appearances. This Orlando team is full with veterans. And when we talked about with Jonathan Bane is the overall chemistry that had to be initialized. Now they've had a couple of days of practice. They, came back from that road trip to San Antonio. They've been gelling, had some walkthroughs. They're focused. And knowing that team, if they catch on fire at the right time with majority of their next second half at home, games at home, they're going to be scary and it's going to be a threat. But it comes down to this game. Albany
Yes.
also has something to prove too. Roland Rivers has something to prove too. Fabian Guerra has something to prove too. There are guys on that Albany team that have something to prove. It's just this game's going to be so intense and so exciting. You can't predict the game because you don't know what to expect. We know what Orlando can do because we saw them last week. It's been now 2 weeks since Albany's played. New coach, Maurice Legette's now a coach. He was a player 2 weeks ago now as a coach, so you don't know what his style is going to be. So there's going to be that little bit of a transition period early in the game. But some keys to this game for Albany. Keep it to a one-score game as much as possible before you can start getting your stuff together. If
Yeah.
you have a showing, if you go out there and you're down 2-3 scores in the first half, I think Orlando and that coaching staff are not going to be one of those type of coaching staff this game. They're like, we're going to just take it easy. No, they're going to be a team, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. They're going to put the foot in the pedal to the metal, and they're going to try to break the scoring record. That's the mentality I feel from Orlando right now. They don't care. They know they're better than you, and they're going to try to beat you and run you out of the building. The key to the game for Albany, keep it as close as you can. Make it a fourth quarter game, and let them stress, like, why we're not blowing out Albany. Do that, Albany. You have players that can – Fabian Guerra's been on some good teams. Roland Rivers has started learning. Starks has been on good defensive teams. So they have players that they can make plays. And they got Neesmith, a guy who's had veterans in the NAL, came from another league, from another former team in the NAL. Now he's on there. So you have some veterans there that have been there and have done that. Keep it a one-score game in the second half. Do not survive the storm, Albany. Survive it. Because if you don't survive a storm in the first couple of possessions, this game could get ugly and ugly quickly because the guys on the other side of the field have something to prove. And honestly, if you're a fan of the NAL over the last couple of weeks, you know the reason why. But for Orlando, you had a tough game in Albany, a tough game in San Antonio. Name all the teams besides San Antonio. You had a tough game in San Antonio last week, but you showed signs of this is going to be a good connection. The Bane, the CJ Williams connection is going to be good. Bane, the Prince is going to be good. Now they had another week. For Orlando, get off to that fast start because we know you want to get to that fast start and you want to go out of the gates blitzing. And, in this game, prove a point and move on to next week when the Carolina Cobras come into town. That's Orlando's mindset. That's your key there. Get out of the gate hot. Albany, keep it as close as a one-score possession game as long as possible. Make Orlando sweat in the fourth quarter. If it's a one-possession game in the fourth quarter, then it's going to be very intense. I really how things have been going on this past week. This game's gonna be tense instantly because the vibe I'm getting from Orlando, they just want to get to this game, end this game early, and cruise into the sunset. If this is a fourth quarter game, one possession game, oh boy, we're gonna have some exciting fourth quarter action. And honestly, for a Friday night game, which later tonight, you can't ask for any more entertainment for the arena football game to have a dawning of a rivalry between these two teams. And usually with rivalries, there's something unexpected that happens that flips the game. And I guarantee we'll see it in Amway tonight in the National Arena League. So yeah, I
Yeah,
really look forward to it.
I'll definitely say I won't. I'll call this more one that's been circled on the map, less rivalry, just because the circumstances at play this year have kind of
Correct.
forced it. Is
Yes.
what it is. So I'll leave it. That's my own thought. But we'll find out. It could be wrong. My thing is, I'm looking at Orlando. Simple thing. You've talked at length, and you've been right since out of the bat since the guys from the Empire have come by. How well does this team gel? Can you live up to the potential that's on paper, on your roster sheet? Because that's what I think a lot of people have been looking at, or some of the chatter on our own social pages amongst fans has been hey, this is a pretty talented on paper roster. Preds fans are now going, hey, let's get the ball rolling, man. It's time to go now or never. And then if you're looking at the Albany Empire, Empire fans, it's been a year for you. I think their main question they're sitting here, and it's mine too, is who's playing QB. And I think that was the biggest thing that's come out recently in the transaction wire is that, Roland Rivers is still there. However, now you have Mo Leggett as your head coach. Ben Bennett's not there as the OC anymore, by the way. And they just signed Jeffrey Legree from the Orlando Predators. He was recently let go. And you do wonder who's going to get that snap to start. I'll make a prediction. I'm not even certain who it'll be because as much as Roland has been playing, you could argue Jeffrey could slide in because he's been in this league a few years.
Yep.
If you want a young team to have some sort of, arena experience, he would be your choice. But that comes down to what Mo wants to do. And, Pete Porcelli's still on that team. And I think as much as I know Mo can do this, Pete's definitely, to me, as much as he's an O-line coach, he is definitely, to me, I consider him an advisor / co-head coach at this point because he was there previous week, and he is definitely going to be helping out a lot more than just as an O-line gig with that. That being said, that's my point. I think you wonder about that because you do have Fabian Guerra you can lean on. You still have DeQuan Patton, who's been coming on when he's had his chances to get if throws gone his way. Your line's got to step up, which is going to be a little bit hard of an ask given that line has been rotating out pieces, whether it's releases previous to some of the chaos with that first big release of talent or just trying to find new guys now with the cycle of coaches and players coming in. So hard task to be there. But if you got to pick QB, I think it'll come down. My key choice will be the QB position in this game. Doesn't matter who it is there. Because whoever gives you the best opportunity to keep up, because I don't see Orlando being behind the 8 ball again this time. That's your best bet to me. So I'm watching the Albany Empire for that because I need to see the guy who's the most competent and who can get the ball out and deliver on time. Roland is good as we saw, Roland can be good if you get that shotgun snap. Last game 2 weeks ago, he was not ready for under center, and I don't see them changing that if he's in. Jeffrey has done that before. Even if it's been in limited capacity, he's at least played the arena game to where he can go under center and get it out when needed. So that's my key to the game. What's yours, real quick, Jim? We're doing this now, so I got to hear that. If you the other side, who you looking at in Orlando?
I'm looking for the beast himself, Brandon Cisse.
There you go.
Let's see how he controls the line of scrimmage. He's been very quiet the last couple of weeks. He had a couple of good plays against Orlando and against West Texas, but let's see what he does against it looks like right now, based on the roster from Albany, a very inexperienced line. But you got Freddie Booth Floyd, you got Brandon Cisse right there. the anchor in the middle for Orlando. And you got Nick Hag, one of the best linebackers ever played the game back there. It's going to be see how Orlando's front five contains, or how they go after Albany's offensive line. How can Albany adjust? But it comes down to Brandon Cisse, for NAL first team, NAL second team. The guy has so many awards on NAL. He's been around the block. He knows when to turn it on. So I think Brandon Cisse is an individual in this game to look out for, and he's my keys game. I would even say this: if Brandon Cisse gets a sack in this game, Orlando wins this game.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice, and I think that you are absolutely right. Before we dive into our picks, let's get into a conversation with another more recent recent Albany Empire QB. Was ready to be the Gunslingers quarterback. He's been a little bit around the block everywhere, even outside the league, for a few games this year in the indoor scene. And it's a good buddy of the show, obviously, and we're glad to get to talk with him once more. I'm glad he's back in the NAL. Sit back and relax. We got Jonathan Bane for you this week, jumping on, kind of talking about this game, talking about his season, maybe some things about his career moving forward, and really good conversation. You trust me, we always have a good time with Jonathan. You're going to enjoy it too. So we'll catch you on the other side, give you your picks before we check out for this evening, before you go into the games. I know I stuttered there. I did a Porky Pig type of thing. But yeah, go on, check it out. We'll see you on the other side. Here you go. Welcome, everyone, into our latest edition of our Inside the Walls podcast interview series, obviously bringing you the latest from the best of the best in the National Arena League and some of the brightest faces from the NAL that we get to talk to on a weekly basis, more even coming in twice a week now. Wild stuff. But hey, we love more interviews all the same with some of these great players from the National Arena League. And of course, this week we're bringing on somebody who is no stranger to Inside the Walls, and someone who is wearing a lot of hats these days for one reason or another. It's been a year, and it has been a wild ride, but he is, as always, a legend in the NAL. It is Jonathan Bane, quarterback now for the Orlando Predators, coming in to this week. His second game coming up. Hey, Bane, how we feeling, man? It's been kind of a roller coaster. Seems a little light on the side of describing your season, your journeys around, because I mean it's taken you from here outside of the league and back in with now 3 different teams that you've had at least some sort of contract with. How are you doing right now?
Hey man, we're first of all, thank y'all for having me on. I always appreciate what y'all done from this league from when y'all started this thing, man. But second about me, man, I'm great, blessed with an opportunity to just play the game that I love. You kind of hit the nail on the head. It's been a roller coaster ride this season. Something you can't ever prepare for, something like that. Paid happening. But, we're here. And at the end of the day, man, it's just a blessing to be out here and play the game you love, do what you love. And, and to be a part of such a historic organization like Orlando is just impressive in itself. And I'm very appreciative of that opportunity. So I'm doing fine, man. As long as we're getting to sling the rock, it's always a blessing, and I'm going to enjoy it while I'm here.
Well, I'll tell you, we were glad to see you back. Really, now is it 3 weeks ago that we were talking about? 4, actually. Just kind of had to get that break to get over to Orlando. But, it was great to see you back coming into the league, period. Had to step aside after early talks about what we were discussing with San Antonio. But, went back with Albany. Kind of make your own separate way, come to Orlando again. I'd love to more talk about the Preds right now. Where are the Predators for you right now? It's a weekend, you've played 1 game. You've had now multiple weeks of practicing with these guys. I think one of the biggest talking points in the NAL right now is the Predators, with a lot of name on roster type of discussion where it's like, this is a 1-5 roster, but this does not read as a 1-5 roster. We're like, between you, Coach Ware, a lot of these guys that came over from Albany, where are you guys at with developing this, along with just kind of meshing it together? Because I think the mesh seems like it needs to mesh together for you.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it comes down to. Definitely on paper, this is one of the most talented teams I've played on, much less in the league right now. And but that doesn't matter, until you really start gelling and it makes you appreciate the 2 weeks of camp you get before a season, right? You know, that's a chance to get to know your guys, timing, everything, and just with turnover of rosters or whatever it may be. And it's no excuse, you know, we're professional athletes, and you got to hit the ground running, especially in a mid-season edition, you know, and that's why they add veteran guys mid-season. You see, you know, because guys that have played the game, but you got to always appreciate and respect the work put into the game, and it takes time sometimes, you know. And the positive of it is this roster is loaded, you know, from the guys that have been here in Orlando for multiple years, or even from the beginning of this season. A lot of talent there, and then the additions of the guys that came in from Albany. You know, we had a heck of a week of practice this week, you know, and this will be our second week together. And that's what I told them right now. You know, we were hoping to come out with a win this past Saturday or Sunday, sorry, against a good San Antonio team. Unfortunately, we lost that one. But this week, you know, we could have went either way, right? You know, you got guys, you're 1-5. That's tough, you know, but the guys really showed up and showed out as a whole, you know, from offense, defense, special teams, just the execution and the way guys were moving around, flying around, just seemed like a different ball club. And, you know, and you hope that's what this is, right? You hope that's the gelling and the meshing and the brotherhood you form. And you got to have it to be successful in this game. You just do, man. You gotta want to fight for each other. You gotta want to go, you know, give your last for each other. And you know, I'm excited to see what we put on the field tomorrow, being our second week together, this exact group, our second week. And, you know, I'm looking forward to some big things and going on a run, but more importantly, just taking it week by week, man. Like we said, we had talked earlier, it don't matter what the standings are, as long as we just take care of our job each and every week and let the chips fall where they may. That's all we can do, and that's all we can control. Because if you start looking at the outside factors and worrying about how many games am I back, how many games, you know, well, then you're not being where your feet are, you know, and being where your feet are, I mean that by Monday, you know, getting to work, going to work, finishing, stacking days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We have a game Friday this week, so we're playing, but, you know, every day just stacking good days, man, trying to get better, working on the little things. And we're going to be a dangerous team. I can tell you that. We just, you know, got to get it all clicking. And, you know, tomorrow's going to be a good chance for us to hit the ground running.
Yeah, it's going to be for you guys. I mean, you get to rally behind that home crowd that, you know, I tell you, one of the loyalist fan bases in the league right now for kind of the up and down with the return of the franchise being how it is since it's returned in the NAL form. You played obviously against that crowd. It is rowdy out in that jungle. How is it to have them behind your back now? I mean, you played in the largest in Jacksonville, but I mean, Orlando still, it's no slouch, and it's been consistently growing ever since we've started this show.
Absolutely, man. That's I'm excited. It's by far it is the most beautiful arena I've ever played in. And the fan base has been phenomenal ever since the beginning. I mean, to date me a little bit, 2016, when I was in Tampa Bay, my first ever arena football game was against the Orlando Predators in Tampa. But I'm saying that to say I think Orlando had just as many, if not more, fans there as Tampa Bay did. And you just respect that as a player. You appreciate it. Those types of fans are special people. You know, they keep this game going, right? They keep it alive. And to be on this side of things, I'm looking forward to being in the jungle and having them cheer for you now rather than boo you out of the stadium or whatever. But it makes for a great game, though. You even enjoy it, like I said, as a competitor coming in. You know, when I was on other teams playing in Orlando, it just makes for a great atmosphere for arena football. It's what arena football is all about. And they know this game just as good as we know this game. You know what I mean? Fans that have been around from the old AFL days, you know, so they're cheering when they need to cheer. They're being loud when they need to be loud. And it's a great atmosphere. I was able to catch the game 2 weeks ago whenever West Texas came into town, and just kind of sat back and enjoyed it. And man, I tell you what, there's an energy in there that's second to none. So I'm excited to be here and being in the jungle and being on the Orlando side of things.
Before I hand it to Jim, you make me think when you talk about knowledge of the game, I instantly think of superfan Steve Morris and his crew of buddies, because they are as superfan as arena as you can get in the NAL. They are like the cream of the crop type of folks, and and everyone I've talked to. I've never met them in person. I wish I do, because I've heard just they're generous, great people, great fans to be with. Both Steve and Nancy, those two. And it's good to have those type of folks in Orlando to have support your back. Jim, I mean, it's good to have that, but also makes for good rivalries when you got diehard fans like them as well on that side.
Well, it's not a rivalry when the rivalry's one-sided. That's the only thing. Right now,
they've gotten wins against the Sharks, though.
Yeah, they did this year, but it's 8-2 overall in the NAL. So, anyways, Bane, this is going to be your first official home game. You're not traveling. This is your first game not traveling. I don't think you were home. Were you home no, you were visiting all their games. So,
yeah.
How does it feel not traveling for a game for once this season?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm glad I'm just here for more than 1 week, right? First of all, first and foremost. No, I'm glad to be home. It helps. We had a really short week. I need to set that schedule up. That was pretty rough going from Texas. You get home late Monday Monday night, and then you got 2 days to prepare for a big ball game here at home. But once again, it's a blessing to even have the opportunity to play, so I'm not going to complain too much. But it's going to be great to be home. You get to sleep in your own bed. All that stuff really matters. You're preparing here. You don't have to get the heavy legs from the plane and all of that. So, we're looking forward to it. And then, of course, being in the jungle, there's nothing like it. So we're all excited and give them something they're proud of, man. These fans, like you said, they've been awesome for years, but we got to win some games now and, give them something to really cheer about, because they come and show out every single week. And that just speaks volume on who they are and the type of people and real fans they are. They're not fair weather fans. These folks are cheering just as loud, when you're losing as you are winning. So it'd be fun to see how crazy it gets when you are winning games and stringing together a run and making a push for the playoffs.
How important is team chemistry? You've only been under a team 7 days practice total, and we could tell in the first game against San Antonio, the first couple of drives looked like you, Clarence Williams, and Prince have been buddies for 10 years. But then as the game progressed, you can tell that there's still something missing. Team chemistry doesn't get talked about a lot in media. It's like, oh, he should be,
right.
Quarterback A should be doing this because he's a vet, and the receiver should be, because there's so many different. It's not so many. Well, you even mentioned it the last time you were on the show. Once you know one system, you know all the systems, but there's a difference between two systems when the personnel is different. So team chemistry is big for you. 7 days, second week with Orlando, if we still had a Hall of Famers with receivers that Orlando has.
Right.
How does that help as a player, as yourself, to get ready for your second game after just having hurry up and go last week against Orlando?
No, it's you said it best, man. Chemistry is everything, and it is. And anybody you talk to that plays this game or knows the game of football in general, not just arena football, this is football in general. It takes a second, and I fall back on, usually you get 2 weeks of camp before you start a season with your team, right? Mm-hmm. And I understand, and on every team they go through injuries, and you got plug and play, right? Just anything could happen at any moment, and you got to be prepared for it. And that's what makes you professionals, right? Is to be able to step in and execute whenever you're called upon. But it is a big deal, and then to come in and go play a really good team like San Antonio, right? They're top of the league, and you got to kind of play mistake-free football when you play those guys. And unfortunately, a couple mistakes cost us that game, right? You feel like you're in it. And then a couple mistakes, you can't afford to do that. And then there you are on the losing end of it. So chemistry is everything, especially at the quarterback position, I feel, with your receivers. I don't even have to go over the receivers' resumes that I have on this team. They kind of speak for themselves. Got an awesome group of guys, a group of guys that have been around a while, and then some young guys to throw in the mix too, which is always great, I feel, with any team, right? You got your older guys. Sorry, I don't want to call them old because they're still performing at the top of the league. But you got your older guys, vet guys that, can kind of show the young guys the ropes. You can coach it and teach it so many times, but when you're out there as a young guy and you see the way this receiver runs this route and why he does what he does, and why it's successful. I think that's easier for guys to pick up and learn and, add to their game. And, with the young guys, you mentioned CJ Williams and Caleb Walls, and those are two to name young guys that come in and make an impact whenever they're in and their number's called, to go with Lonnie Outlaws and Darius Prince, and, who also does an awesome job at the two-way is Dwayne Hollis. You got guys like that, and they've been in the game, they know the game, and it makes my job a lot easier too, right? Because I can trust them guys, like they've been a part of this. And with Coach Ware, man, he's on his stuff, man. Coach Ware's a big preparation guy. I mean, he's got the film broke down to a T. We're gonna, we do things for a purpose. When he calls a play, we're building this relationship now also, coach and player, to where, I want to think exactly like he's thinking, when I'm just another version of him on the field, you know what I'm saying? So when he's calling plays, when it comes to executing them, we're seeing the same thing. We're going to the right places with the ball. And that just comes with time. And I think we're doing a really good job right now. Like I said, this last week of practice was really good. Gives us a lot of confidence going into this week. Short week, but I don't think guys are thinking about that, as much as they are trying to get this thing back on track. And it starts with 1 week. I'll say it a million times. We can't look ahead, man. We got a game tomorrow, and we got to go out there, and whatever it takes, we got to come out with a win. And that's all three phases, from the offense, defense, special teams, and we've been just preaching execute, execute, execute. And like I said, let the chips fall where they may, but we got to do what we can and control what we can control. And like I said, we've had a great week of preparation to put a good product out there tomorrow.
Yeah, attention to detail, preparation, obviously key, no matter the length or duration you got until the next game. A little bit different though, because it's only the second. It's of the 2 Friday games this year. You have to join up and be on the second one. Funny, it would have been possibly one way or another depending on the two teams meeting up. But is there any concern coming in about short week? We hear about it in the NFL, but we don't usually have to deal with that in the NAL, except this year we're kind of dabbling in a bit of the Friday games more so than last season. Has there been any conversation about that in general team wise, or is it just standard week? We got one less day.
Yeah, I think yes. I mean, to be real, your football players, right? That week getting home late Monday night, you got heavy legs. You're fresh off the game. That's a good travel, halfway across the country. And then wake up the next day and get to practice, right? You don't really have that true recovery day. But like I said, we were fortunate enough to get out of this game this past week, for the most part, injury-free, right? The guy's not as banged up as, you get sometimes. So that was fortunate. And we got a great training staff with Miss Jill. She's awesome and got us hooked up with, a lot of any of the recovery that we need in order to be successful. So, guys just doing their part, taking care of their bodies. Everybody knows their body better, than anybody else. So, and that just comes to just trusting your teammates. We preach that too. It's a brotherhood, man. And we trust whatever you're doing on and off the field affects what we do as a whole on game day, and that's recovery, how you eat, how you sleep, what you put into your body, and that's what it comes down to. But it's a team full of vets. Some really good ones, even on that defensive side of the ball with all them guys, man. We really got a team, a lot of experience, and we're just looking to get over that hump, man. Winning's contagious, right? You just got to get that one win to kind of, get you back going and get you. And who knows, at that point, I feel it'd be a snowball effect, right? And you just keep rolling. Was kind of in a situation like this back in 2018 with the Maine Mammoths. If y'all remember, we started out 1-5 and then kind of ran the tables the rest of the season. But, missed out on the playoffs by half a game, I believe. So, it is what it is with that. You just got, what I learned from that, though, is just staying focused, controlling what you can control, ignoring the outside noise, and just worrying about what you got going, man. And that's the group of guys. That's the 21 guys or 25 total, I guess, you have on your roster, the coaches and the ownership. It's just on us as a core group to stick together, trust one another, and go to war for one another, man. That's where the brotherhood and chemistry comes in. And I think that's what we got and what everybody's going to get a chance to see Friday night.
Well, certainly. It's good to have, again, we reference, you got that massive home stretch ending the year. Not right. Have the best possible, I think, to many people's eyes, chance of getting something where it's at least a comfort zone that you can kind of build around, and have that fandom behind your back. Even down right now where you're at, you still can
Right.
week by week. I get that little bit of boost knowing that I can have anywhere from 4,000 to 7,000 fans next week that will be saying, "Don't worry, no matter what happens, we're here and we're going to make it tough."
Yeah, and you love that, right? That matters. That ninth man, that ninth man. It's preached all over the league, but there's a handful of venues like the Amway, as a sense of like the crowd, the noise, and that does play an effect, and being the opposing team when you're trying to make a call, the snap count, the cadence, all of those little bitty things we talk about, right? They seem so minor, but they do play a huge role in the game of football, and then it's on us to execute, right? Give them something to cheer about, give them something to be louder about, and be proud of, and like I said, I'm looking forward to it, man. We got a good feeling going on down here in Orlando. We're not where you ever want to be, 1-5, but we can't think about it, man. It's talked about enough. Who cares, man? There's nothing we can do to control it now, right?
Right. Well, you're in the city,
and
you're there where you're there.
Yep. So that's what we're looking forward to here with the Predators.
Seeing in Orlando, the dimensions of the field are different. You've played the similar dimensions in Carolina, and this season it's been the curvature of Jacksonville and Orlando and San Antonio.
Right.
As a quarterback, how does the dimensions of the end zones, determine certain routes or certain play calls?
Oh, you love it as a quarterback, man. Honestly, I think if you ask across the board, DBs, right, they're always taught in man coverage, stay inside, don't let them cross your face. So honestly, the hardest route to cover is the corner route, running the corner away from your safety. And with the square end zone, it actually allows you just a couple more yards to be able to put the ball up and out, and have your receiver be able to run under it, even in tight coverage. So I believe every quarterback in the league will tell you it does help you a little bit, and you want to use that to your advantage on the deeper balls, and even in the red zone, right? So the red zone, it's already tight as it is with, there's 16 guys in a tight area, 8-on-8. And with the few extra yards, because it is a game of just inches in this game, those few extra yards really allow you to throw different types of balls to help in working the offense's advantage. So, we were able to get in there today and kind of feel that, see that. And I'm excited for it as a quarterback. You just love that, having that little, it's only a 50-yard field as it is. So when we're talking 3 yards, extra in those corners, you do the math, that's almost a tenth of the field. 5 yards is a tenth of the field. So you're getting extra space to be able to, run different route concepts and more spacing down there. And that's what you look for in those situations. And fortunately, we got that at home, where you said I think 4 out of the next 5 games will be. So we're looking forward to getting in here and getting rolling.
Also, it's a risk reward. We saw it last week, the nets. You threw a couple passes the nets that hurt you, and you threw a Hail Mary off of a nets that finally got counted on the website. Dealing with the nets, like me and Zach have been talking to other players about why are quarterbacks not throwing it at the nets in like a Hail Mary type of situation. You're a quarterback, so you play in the league, you understand, and you first were introduced to this game with the nets. How odd or not odd? How do you determine? Okay, we're gonna throw a Hail Mary here. Is it just wing it, or just hopefully your guys are down there, or is it just more of just pure luck for the nets for a Hail Mary type of thing, like it is in the outdoor game?
Yeah, that can kind of go two ways, right? Like, you never want to rely on the net. I'm not going to sit here and say, like, man, we're going to drop a play. I'm going to throw it right here. You're going to go, it's going to bounce to you right over there. I do think it can play in effect, right? It hurts you, like the tip ball in the end zone. Usually it would fly out of the back of the end zone. You live to fight another down. This time it tips off the back of the end zone, and the DB that's not even guarding the receiver is the one making the play. It's just, it makes the game cool, right? That's what they're there for. But and then on the flip side of that, at the end of the game last week, with 3 seconds left on the clock, they have all 3 DBs sitting in the end zone. More times than not, you're not going to probably be able to just drop a dime in the end zone. So I saw the way our routes were designed. We had 2 guys kind of running a double post type look. And so I had a 6'7", 6'8" Lonnie Outlaw over there, and I had, the reigning league MVP, Darius Prince. And I actually just said, why not? Just heave it off the net. They're at the back of the end zone. Darius does a heck of a job on kickoff return, receiving the ball off the net.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you know? He came down with the ball. And that was cool. Like I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, man, we're going to design an offense to go off the net. But it can play to your advantage right there in that point, right? You got a guy that receives it off 6-7 times a game on kickoff return. Why not give him a chance, right? You got guys back there, DBs, that may not be receiving it off the net, may not know how it bounces off the net. And as you saw, he was standing by himself when he did catch it, right? There was guys around him, but technically there was nobody even contesting that catch.
Mm-hmm.
And so it did work out in that, sense. And they were good for us the other night, and they were bad. So you enjoy the Nets. That's the original game. But yeah, I guess depending on how the ball bounces for you is whether you like them or not.
I think when you made it sound so easy when you said I got a 6'7" Lonnie Outlaw back there and a former MVP and a current MVP, not former, but you get the point. Multiple time MVP or Offensive Player of the Year, whatever you name it, multi-award winner in Darius Prince. It kind of makes it sound easy, Not every team gets that. I do find a unique. I found a unique question. I think you can answer, or at least I think I have a good opinion on. It was something I was having a chat with a buddy of mine, and we're watching other leagues. We're the only league with nets right now, and
right.
The question was, well, why doesn't the NAL kick more field goals? And I'm sitting here, I'm going, we don't really do that, but I gave him the thought and said, well, now even more so, first off, you're going to have a return, and second off, you're going to have, if you want, you're more likely to score with getting your drive going and getting a first down on fourth down than going for a field goal with the kind of the less of a gap to kick through with a field goal. You can still score a touchdown on a 4th and 10 more easily, or at least in a similar rate. I mean, what do you think about that? Because our league doesn't really kick field goals. It happens every now and then. I see newer teams that come over from different leagues. They try it and then they abandon it within a few games. Right. I mean, it's got to be because of efficiency. Now the Nets, it almost feels like there's very little incentive unless it's like coming down to the wire at a half or towards the end and you're within 3.
Well, I guess 2 things, right? I don't think in the National Arena League, the arena style of game, that you can win games kicking field goals often. You know what I mean? Just because it's so quick to score and you don't want to get caught chasing and settling, if you will, for field goals, unless it is, like you said, there's 5 seconds left in the half, you're backed up on the 20, there's not a lot of plays in your playbook that you can just draw up and have somebody just running wide open. With them being cognitive of where the end zone is and what your goal is. But 2, or I say most importantly, you got to think who's on your field goal unit, right? It's a bunch of O-linemen, no disrespect to those guys. You got to love them. But I don't think their specialty is running down and tackling, a skill guy. And on top of that, you got a quarterback usually or somebody holding and your kicker. I love and appreciate everybody I just named, right? Your O-linemen, your big guys, your kicker, your quarterback. But is that somebody you really want going down tackling like a Khalil Rashad or, a Darius Prince or, any of those types, Adam Smith, all these guys who are having success returning, nothing to take away from their return skills. But in that sense, you make one guy miss, you got a chance to take it back for 6. So you're almost better off trusting in your offense to get the first down. And then, if you don't get it, well, you make them drive to go score a touchdown rather than, I don't want to say it's a freebie, but there's the odds there. You're playing with fire if you're deciding to kick and it does miss and he gets a clean catch. Well, now you got big guys trying to make it. The guys who don't tackle, let me put it that way. Guys who aren't practicing anybody.
Sure, right. I mean, I'm with you. That's just. To me, it's. I know I'm going to ask the same question eventually once we get another kicker on this show. But it was just this week. I was like, I have to bring this up to a player's side, especially like for you. I mean, you want to go score, you want to get points. It's not just as simple as the outdoor game where it's like, well, we're sure we'll sacrifice and we'll go and live another down. It's like if you give a possession up here one way or another, like 3 points, go back the other way and score, score 4 or score at +4, then you get the deuce and it's 10. Now you basically are swinging it huge at that point.
So what Bane's basically saying and translating, we had another quarterback previously who's kind of the third co-host here on the show, saying that quarterbacks don't trust kickers because they'll get the team down there and the kicker shanks it. This is basically Mason Espinosa. He goes, "Don't trust a kicker." He goes, "I don't care if it's Adam Terry. Don't trust a kicker." I'm like, "Dang, Mason, really?"
Well, I love him. I do hear what he's saying, Mason. I feel you, brother. In this game alone, man, just how much scoring's going on. 3 points usually doesn't do much for you. Really don't, because that can be made with a deuce and a rouge, and there's your 3 points made up, or whatever. You can get it in multiple ways. But on the flip side of that, I'm not going to say it's easy, but I think it's a lot higher percentage to complete the 4th and 10 ball, just based on you got a whole open playbook. Heck, nowadays you can even throw the wall route, a 2-yard route, and if they're in zone coverage, he can pick up 12, and then there's your first, So
right.
I think you do want to keep it in your offense's hands in this game particular. Now, if you're in a 4th and 25, 4th and 30 on some crazy holding penalties, I've seen it, but it happens. Then you might consider, but once again, now you got to think you got big guys who ain't used to covering down on kickoff. Well, that's what their job is at that point, And I love the kickers I play. I've been fortunate enough to play with some really good ones, really, really good kickers with T.C. Stevens, Brandon Bear. Now Barnos is a heck of a kicker himself here in Orlando. But and I tell them too, I'm the holder. I take pride in it. I love holding, but I try to reassure them like, hey, I just need you to make these extra points. We're going to move the ball. We're going to score on offense. I love you to death, but we're not relying on your leg for 3 every time. It's just not what I see arena football being, and not how I want the game, to be played. I'd like to get it in our offense's hands and trust, the playmakers that are here and to move the ball and get in the end zone. But you do need them. You love them. Every point matters, especially now that they're knocking in these deuces, man. That's awesome. You got kickers getting, 12, 14 points a game. That's crazy, man. You know what I mean? That helps. That's 2 touchdowns they're adding to the scoreboard. So you do appreciate and love to have them, but when it comes to field goals, like I said, I agree with you, Mason. Let's keep it in the quarterback's hands and try to make a play.
I knew you. I maybe knew a little you were going to bring that up, but it's still funny the way he brought up. I mean, it's more unfortunate. Like I said, we know Mason is. We're talking about the same guy that I threw 5 straight touchdowns in a championship, and we're trailing because we can't hit XPs. That's where that's coming from. That's the only reason that gets brought up.
That's why I started holding. I think it was my first year. I saw a few missed extra points happen after we scored a touchdown and we were losing, right? And we were going score for score. And I'll never forget after that, I just said, man, I'm going to learn to hold. And I promise, I don't care what you think of me as a quarterback. I'm going to be the best holder in the game because I don't want to hear an excuse. I want them to. And so I take pride in the holds. I do, but I only want to do that for extra points. We're going to sling the rock when we got 4th down or, something manageable. We're going to give it a go. So appreciate you, kickers. Barnos, looking forward to playing with you down here and seeing you have all the success in the world, but save that leg up for them deuces, baby.
Which have now become a plethora of them now. We had a couple of weeks where we weren't getting deuces. In the last couple of weeks, deuces are dropping everywhere now. Marco here in Jacksonville.
It
Weber,
still sounds
West
funny
Texas.
every time you say it.
Sounds funny as good. Yeah, that's a
the
good
deuces are dropping everywhere. Yeah. Drew Pearson, shout out to another podcast. Smoking Guns. He mentioned that Drew Pearson. This is what he says. Like, yeah, there's 2 things I do. I kick deuces and drop deuces.
There you go.
I was like, that's a strange comment from a kicker. But then again, he kicks deuces. So
that's what he does, man. As funny as it sounds, that's what he does. That's you got to respect those guys. That's a tough job, man. That field goals are so narrow in this league, and heck, even you get them guys that get the bar balls. That's huge, right? That's almost like a
massive
side kick, but down on the other end of the field. But if it bounces just right, and you got your kick coverage is hauling ass, that's a huge play in the game. Even for the 1 point, you talk about points and getting them back, and say you get the Rouge and they missed an extra point. Well, that's things that start adding up, and so you definitely appreciate the kicking game and the nets when it comes to that aspect.
Well, I think that is a good cover. I think we've had a great time on here with you, a good Mr. Bane, as I call it. I still call you, still weird calling you Jonathan, because I'm usually okay with calling people John, but you know.
Yeah, hey, you call me John. I feel like my mom's yelling at me or something if you call me Jonathan. I ain't gonna lie.
Oh, all right. Well, that's fair. You know,
It's what I'm getting yelled at on the field or whatever. It's always been Bane, and but yeah, Jonathan is. It always sounds weird. I have a guy at practice always used to just walk up and be like, "Hey, Jonathan." I'm like, "What?" Like it just throws me off. I've had a coach yell Jonathan, and I won't let it don't trigger like where I look up. I'm not ignoring him, but it just don't register sometimes because it's always been Bane. But yeah, either way, I've been called worse, so I kind of answer just about anything nowadays. So.
Bane. Well, I'll go with Bane. I'll go with Bane again, even though we've done the same dance before. But look, it is great. It's great to have you on. Great to have you back in the league. Good to get to converse. Gonna be a fun time on Friday. Obviously we're talking before, this show drops. So, it's gonna be, if you're watching now, you'll be like, oh yeah, I can't wait to see him tonight when I go out there. By the way. If you haven't done that, go get your tickets, by the way. It should be a fun time out in Amway. Always a good one. Crowd's rowdy. It's a fun team. Should be a very fascinating battle. All things considered, on or off field, as we've discussed this week. So, should be a fun game. I'm just going to go beyond that. You go check out this man slinging the rock out there on the turf. One of the best to do it in the league. We're glad to have you on. Always a great conversation with you on this show.
Man, I appreciate y'all. I really do. Got so much respect for what y'all do, like I mentioned earlier. And shout out to all the fans out there, all the players as well. I know what you go through and what you're putting in to put a product out there for this game. It's a really special game. We just all need to be appreciative of the opportunity to play it. And I always tell our guys here, we don't get to play. We don't have to play it. We get to play it. Right. So appreciate everybody involved in this arena game. Been in it for a while and don't plan on being out here in any time soon. So looking forward to being in the Amway, back in the jungle, and don't sleep on the Predators. We're coming, and we got to take care of business starting this week. But I'm excited to see what the future holds here in Orlando.
Thanks again to Jonathan Bane, quarterback for the Preds, joining us. As always, it's a pleasure for Jim and I to get to chat with him. He's always been kind to us, always been a friend of the show to us, and one way or another, I think even if he wasn't in the NAL, we would bring him on the show because he still follows this league. No matter where he's at, he follows hardcore with it. But yeah, great dude.
I don't even consider it an interview anymore. It's not really an interview with Bane. It's always conversation.
Yeah, it's more conversation. It's just that we had to record it separate because of timing. Is the thing.
It's more of a conversation. People have mentioned, why you didn't, he asked this question, why you didn't ask these questions. Well, with Bane, it's more of like when you start talking about football, you can look at the clock and you go, oh, wow, that's 4 hours later and we're still talking about football. It's one thing that I have respect for Bane and a lot of players in this league. Devin Wilson, Mason Espinosa, Kendrick Gang, Sam Castronova, to name just a few. It's the knowledge of the game is so interesting to me. It's like, that's why I love the arena game so much, because it's a different aspect of football. And I'm a football fan. I love the NFL. I love college, but in the off season, their sport, we have our season, and I love this league, and I love just digging in the minds of quarterbacks and the mindset that these guys go through playing the game and how they strategize, and I don't even think that's a word anymore.
Strategize what you
strategize. There we go. Yeah, I laughed at you before the interview, and you got me on this one.
Let's add that to the inside the wall isms.
Isms, yeah.
Strategicalize this one. That's like straight out of a Charles Barkley skit on NBA Tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, it's time for the Pickem, everybody. The moment you've been waiting for. Let's see what we're doing right now. As you saw last week, we did split one. We were wondering who was going to come out on top. Well, sure enough, the Preds did fall at Freeman Coliseum to the Gunslingers. That means that I get a one-game advantage over Jim. That doesn't mean that that's going to be anything, because knowing us, it'll tie back up or swing back the other way. It's how it always goes. So I'm 15-8 for the season. Jim's 14-9 after a split difference in one of these contests this week. Let's see if we're going to be on the same page or if we're going to be talking about one way or another. Starting off with with one of the 2 Saturday matches, and then kind of working in reverse. Fayetteville traveling to the Shark Tank to take on the Jacksonville Sharks. Mustangs, as we've talked, coming off a marquee win against the Carolina Cobras. Jacksonville, they have been just rolling over opponents, although a little bit less of an efficient affair. Credit that was because West Texas defensively are much more stout than some others in the NAL. That being said, was still 58 points. That's no slouch to put up for any arena game. Still got to feel good. As much as I like the story about Fayetteville, and as much as I know their social media team got on our ends about not picking them, they're going to do it again. And I think that, well, why not? We'll throw it as a chip on their shoulder type of affair. I've got the Sharks, and it's too efficient on all 3 phases. We didn't even talk about Mark Orozco, for crying out loud, and that man really shouldn't even be kicking in the NAL. He should be in a outdoor league. Like, that's how good he is, and that's not an offense thing. We've said it before. He's that good. We're lucky to have him as a premier kicker in this league. The Sharks are just overall that well faceted. I'll give credit to the Mustangs. They'll make it a fun game, without a doubt. It'll be close. They played them close last time. I just think that this one, it's a little overwhelming. I got to take Jacksonville until proved wrong. And you know, if they do it again, great. I get to get yelled at by the social admin for the Fayetteville Mustangs, which will be even more hilarious because we can play that up next week. But give me the Sharks at home.
Get the Sharks at home. That's everyone knows about the Jacksonville Sharks and the Shark Tank, how they play, how everything goes, and how everything is, set forth. Like I said in the pregame, and how to make predictions in the game. How can Jacksonville or how can Fayetteville execute this game? Who's going to contain Cato? Who's going to contain Castronova? Who's going to be the guy who stands out above the rest? Does Kendrick Ings have a breakout game? Does Sam have, or Kayam Solomon have? There's certain things in this game that I look at that I really want to see a team like, like Fayetteville do one day. Like, go out the way, get themselves a big win, and skyrocket through the top of the standings. Unfortunately, this week, as much as saying we acknowledge you, you did beat Carolina in Carolina, which is a good win, but Jacksonville is a different beast than Carolina. This game's going to be a close one possession game. I think Kendrick Ings has a breakout game. Breakout game means a touchdown return, a couple of touchdowns, and maybe an interception. I think he'll be the Iron Man of the week, in my opinion, for the Fayetteville Mustangs. But Fayetteville will score points, but they can't score enough. Jacksonville gets to 60 again in their home building. Close game, but I like the Sharks in a 60-52 type of matchup. It'll be an exciting game. It'll be a stressor in the fourth quarter, but Jacksonville pulls away in the fourth to win.
Solid stressor in the fourth quarter. I think that's a good description for any Mustangs affair with any of the teams at the top, is that these two, like I said, Fayetteville, they keep up. When you got Rakeem Cato in, they play you tough. You have to play a full game too. It's just which one slips up. We just think that Jacksonville's got a little bit more to kind of finish the job. But hey, you never know, man. We said that about Carolina last week, so we'll find out this week. Meanwhile, over in West Texas, heading on over to Odessa, to the hangar, to Top Gunner's home, his own arena, where we're looking at a possible record crowd, as Jim said, with the Warbirds. They are hosting the Carolina Cobras, who are traveling on the road to try and forget about what happened back home the week prior against their in-state rival. Carolina, 4-2. Still up there at the top 3 in the league, but they're coming in against the West Texas team, as we've been saying. The project car keeps getting better as the weeks go by. This will not be an easy out if they are going to want to get their 5th win of the season. And the question is, do they have enough gas in the tank to get over the hump of an improving West Texas Warbird squad? And do they slow down Mitch Kidd and get enough pressure on him to make things a little bit erratic for the gunslinger himself out there in West Texas, or as I call him, Mitch the Kid? Well, I got to tell you right now, I still have faith in the Cobras as a whole roster. I did call them one of the more fully adapted 3-phase teams in the NAL a few weeks back. I'm still sticking with that. Off nights do happen, and Fayetteville, as we said, is good. They got their stuff locked down. I do believe Carolina comes on the road. They do get a win. It will be a tight, fun affair for those in attendance and those watching. West Texas is a fun team right now to watch. They're scrappy. They have a chance to upset, I think, anyone any week right now. And you should not be surprised if you see an upset affair. I'm going to pick Carolina because I do think with James Fuller and company with that roster, and as returning pieces are getting healthier or returning this week, that they do get the job done. But it'll be a fun one. Just down the wire like last time. It'll be on the edge of your seat. Give me the Cobras.
Wow, you got the Cobras. That's interesting. This game's going to be one of the tighter games in this season. First matchup was one possession, came down the very TC Stevens deuce was the difference. This time it's in Odessa. This time it's with an offense that's more potent than the previous iteration of the West Texas Warbirds. Carolina is traveling to West Texas as a hell of a road trip. I think Carolina does get their offense back into the full of things, but I think West Texas as well continues on their success. And unlike last week, they couldn't do it. This week they will. They pull off the upset and knock off the Carolina Cobras at home to get back in the mix of things.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating. The split. Mm-hmm. Oh, that'll be fun. I think that one, I don't knock you. I really don't. I like where the Warbirds are going, so that will be a fun one. I can see you making a game back on this. I just got to go with my gut on this, and I do have Carolina. But finishing things off, game of the week, Albany Empire traveling on the road. It's been 2 weeks. Coaching change once again. Mo Leggett retiring, becoming a head coach. Roster changes have been a little bit, but still pretty much the similar roster we've seen in recent weeks. Just now we're going to have questions about quarterback. Meanwhile, the Preds just trying to find a win with this veteran squad. Still haven't gotten things down since they've had this mass joining of ex-Empire talent and coaching. You think about it, their one win they got against the Sharks before those transactions happened. So they're still having that chip on their shoulder. They're trying to do it. It's going to be, they've had talks online, as we've talked about, with Empire teammates and Preds teammates. Game of the week for the storylines, people. Mm-hmm. I got to go with the home team, though. And it's because, I will say it, on paper, this is the more talented team. They have one of the rowdiest crowds in the NAL behind them. It's going to be a good attendance there in the jungle. You're going to have a second week with Jonathan Bane getting his boots strapped up and ready to go with Damon Ware. Empire are going to play tough. Toughness, to me, you're going to get over-talented is what's going to happen. There's too much talent to not walk away on Friday night with a win in Amway to get you to 2-5 and to keep up. I got to go with the Preds. I think it'll be a chippy game. You will see some unique moments, I think, that we will all be talking about. Just given how these guys have been talking all week, but I gotta go with the Preds. That is my lock.
Well, I'm gonna make this short and sweet. Let's do a checklist. Who has the best offensive line, defensive line in this game? Orlando, check. Who has the better receiver core right now? Orlando or Albany? Orlando, check. Who has the better coaching right now? Orlando, because of experience. Damon Ware has a lot more experience than Mo Leggett, but Leggett has experience, but not in the NAL. Orlando, who has the better quarterback? Orlando with Bane right now. All things are pointing towards Orlando. All things are pointing to Orlando winning this game pretty handily, maybe one-sided there, but there are some talented players on Albany's side. Fabian Guerra, Kerry Starks, Roland Rivers, Jeffrey Legree. There are guys over there in Albany. They're talented. Albany is where Orlando was last week. They may get a couple of scores, but it's something. Eventually, the team chemistry will catch up to them. It's not going to be a blowout in Orlando. Albany makes it to the second half, and this will be a competitive game in the second half. I do think it's going to be chippy. I do think this is like a college football rivalry atmosphere where the team that comes in you can't stand, you hate, You're going to have that type of attitude and mentality in that building tomorrow night or tonight in the Amway Center. But I do see Orlando winning this game, and getting some help in the standings above them to get them right back in the mix of things for the second half of the season. I think Orlando wins this game comfortably by 2 possessions, possibly 3. Albany just doesn't have enough firepower to keep up with Orlando in the second half. So I think the Orlando Predators win this game about 16 to 17 points.
Well, fun times ahead. Tonight, you'll get your first game of the week. Stick around for that. You should be coming up pretty shortly. If you missed it, oh well. Don't worry. 2 other games you're going to get analysis for as well. It's just Friday games are rare. Only got 2 this year, so we're done with them after this year. So you don't have to worry about having to quickly listen in for this episode. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Episode 109. Catch us on the other side of this coming week. At the beginning, we got episode 110 coming up. NAL Rebound Week 10 edition, highlighting and giving you all the thoughts and recaps of the week prior, and maybe some interesting new playoff implications, or at least changes that we'll see heading on out. But until that next show, guys, follow us on social media at InWallsPod. Be sure to follow us if you haven't on our YouTube page by subscribing to the channel. Click that bell, by the way, if you haven't. Builds morale, and you'll also get reminded of every episode that we drop, along with some special content. Jim does drop these great trailers on there. You don't want to miss those. He does bring those up. They're fun edits. He does a great job with them. Seriously, give him some love. And yeah, until next time, Jim, give us the scoop. Remember one thing, everybody, before you go. What do you got to do?
Don't be a jack in the box.
It's out of the box.
Yeah, no. Don't be a jack out of the box. I just been trying to, feel the chaoticness that's going to be week 10, because I think it's going to be very chaotic.
It will be. It mostly will be.
Don't be a jack out of the box, please. And remember, Uno's back next week.
Should be fun. Guys, see you on the other side. Catch you next time.
We settle the score. Yeah, it's time we settle the score. Come on, are you ready? Let's go. I got this hunger inside of me, a vicious vendetta that won't ever let up. It's bringing the fire up out of me. I come alive for the rivalry. I hear the talk, but that ain't enough. I'm about to pull the rug on your bluff. I'm fresh out of mercy, you out of luck. Yeah, I stand on my rep and I back it up. Turn up the drama, let's set it off. I'm like a beast on the battleground. This kingdom ain't built for the both of us. I'm on my way to come knock you down. Let's go! This time is personal. It's time to reap what you sow. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. This is the end of the road. We got some unfinished business. Your time is ending. Right here, right now. I came to finish you. This time is personal. It's time to reap what you sow. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. This is the end of the road. We got some unfinished business. Your time is ending. Right here, right now. I came to finish you. Game over. I came to finish you. Game over. Game over. Game over.
Covering all your favorite parts of the 50-yard fight. This is the Inside the Walls podcast with Zach Kyleman and Jim Mernier.